Hello, my demons and divas and everyone in between. This is your host, Queenie.
And I'm the co-host.
Welcome to Hell's Carnival. Tonight, we have a very interesting case for you. This case took place in South Central Los Angeles, California.
At what time?
Way back in 1985.
The good old days.
I don't know, I was only 4. I have no idea. So, we have a murder case for you today. It is prolific. And this guy was convicted of killing 10 women. No, 9 women, 1 man.
10 people.
10.
Very graphic.
Possibly hundreds more.
Possibly hundreds more because in future we will talk about how, why.
We'll get to that.
It could be possibly hundreds.
This part of Los Angeles was a poor neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
There's schools, hospitals, and the quality of their schools and hospitals was lower. There weren't any jobs, so that made it even harder.
They were ghetto.
Yeah, it was the ghetto. I grew up in the ghetto, so I get it. The 80s was a dark time for Los Angeles. The crack cocaine was starting to run rampant. There was an epidemic going.
Mm-hmm.
And this guy was just a normal guy in the neighborhood. Normal, quote unquote. And the one that you go by and you see him in the morning and you're like, hey, good morning. See him every day. You've been seeing him your whole life.
You're off to work.
Yeah.
Your kids are have a cold. They caught a cold. And you need someone to take care of your kids. You call Lonnie.
I doubt it.
Lonnie was the guy that you would call to take care of your kids. If you knew him that well.
His murder spree went from 1984 to 2007. He was born on August 30th, 1952. And he does have a survivor.
He does.
Yes.
Pam!
Not Pam. Pam didn't stick around long enough for that.
Dang it.
Anitra Washington.
Anitra! Shout out to Anitra.
She was viciously attacked by this man and still lives to tell about it. So
I didn't know this detail.
He had a camper and a van. The van was an old church van. And he had it fixed up with a mattress and a tripod. Tripod is a thing that you put a camera on because Lonnie had a big thing for taking lewd photos of these women.
It had 3 legs at the bottom and 1 stick going up that you could extend and retract.
Yes. And he would have the women in this van. Well, Anitra got away.
How?
He dumped her because he thought she would die.
He did something to her before and dumped her.
Yes, he would take these women and he would shoot them in the chest with a .22. And then...
Trigger warning, we will be talking about very graphic details in this podcast.
It does pertain sexual assault.
Molestation of younger audiences.
Not this particular episode, but yes. And this one involves a lot of gruesome murder. So the nickname for Lonnie was Grim Sleeper.
And as such, why did he get that nickname?
Because they thought that he took a 14-year break in killing.
But in tracks that we have studied, we believe he killed in another part of the country or moved to a different country to do it.
That's one theory. There is a theory that he moved to another country for that time, and during that time that he lived there, the murder rates went up there. I don't know if that's true, but I don't think he stopped killing for any reason.
Like,
It's thought later that he didn't, but they just didn't have the victims. So he was arrested in July of 2010.
that is a good 35 years.
Yeah, it was a long time. He grew up in South Central Los Angeles. He was married and he had 2 children.
Which is fairly concerning on my part.
Yeah. He was given a general discharge from the United States Army in 1975.
So he was like 15.
So if he was born in 54,
He was like 20.
yeah, he was in his 20s.
How are you going down that path at 20?
I don't know. Back then it was pretty common for guys to go to the Army to get college or education on the government's dime.
Money.
Yes.
Money and scholarships.
The police discovered the dead women in alleyways, dumpsters, covered up with things like garbage bags or clothing, like just barely covered where their feet would be sticking out. I know, it's horrid.
Only so you'd be like, oh yeah, someone's dead here, but like you don't get to see who it is.
And he would leave them completely nude.
So they didn't get to die with dignity.
Not at all.
Oh wow.
They began investigating the murders, and at some point he was called the South Side Slayer, which is kind of corny.
Very corny.
They started a task force, but in order for them to build this task force, it took years. It took years before they ever...
There shouldn't be a reason you should take years to build a task force.
No.
There is no excuse for that.
They say that the crimes were announced to the public September 23rd of 1985, but that's not true. These crimes were not let out to the public until 2008.
2 years before he got arrested.
Yeah, so it went on. See, I think that part of that was due to there had already been a dozen murders, and they didn't want to admit
They didn't want to admit that they weren't doing their job.
that they didn't give a fuck.
Didn't give a damn.
So they didn't say anything. Because these women were sex workers with crack addictions. These were black women that they thought this guy was just cleaning up the streets. The audacity. It was disgusting.
And she watched a documentary, so she has direct quotes from this on documentary.
Yeah, I watched several documentaries. I watched the interview from when he got arrested. And he sits there with the cops, and they put up a photo. Let's say they put Barbara Ware's photo up. Barbara Ware was 23 when he murdered her, January 10th of 1987. They put her photo up. Do you know this woman? And this man had no emotion. None. He was like, no, I ain't never seen her.
A liar.
They put the next one up. Bernita Sparks. She was 26. He killed her April 15th, 1987. Have you seen this woman before? And the same reaction. No emotion. Just, I don't think I've seen her before.
No, I haven't seen her.
They did this over and over and over.
He is a very emotionally reclusive man, I would say.
He is a rotten piece of broccoli that I would rather step on with my shoe. He's disgusting.
Shoe.
Deborah Jackson, Mary Lowe, Valerie McCorvey. All of these women, they kept putting their pictures up. Henrietta Wright, Janicia Peters, Alicia Alexander. Thomas Steele was actually his first victim.
Which is Very strange since he went on a path.
Latricia Jefferson.
Patricia Jefferson?
Latricia.
Oh, Latricia. Okay.
But by his youngest victim was Princess Bartholomew. She was 15 years old. And he killed her March 19th, 2002. This girl already had a hard life.
By what means?
She had been suffering through her life. She had a hard life like I had a hard life. And she had a devastating end to it. Because he wasn't just, trigger warning, we're going to talk about some sexual assault aspects now.
The R word.
He wasn't just like paying these sex workers to have sex with him.
He
brutally raped them and sodomized them, not only with like sex toys, with bottles
and
in their anus, with violent means that would cause them a lot of pain. And one gentleman came up later to talk to the guy that did the documentary and said he wanted to talk to him about it because he had seen and witnessed this happening.
Witness?
You witnessed it. You fucking witnessed it.
And you don't say anything. You are a dirty piece of
shite.
A piece of shite.
Yeah. Yeah. He saw Lonnie take these women into his van. And he would ask the women, how much for both of us? They would do it together.
Excuse me? Wait, did he think... Okay, this is a side question. Did he know it was sexual assault, or did he was...
He watched him violently do these things. He didn't kill in front of him, but he would do all the sexual assault in front of him. Because he's the one that said that he would use other objects besides his penis. He would use bottles or tools or just atrocious things to cause pain to these women. Because he had no respect for them. He didn't look at them as human.
So he watched these women get R-worded, and he watched them suffer the worst pain they could ever suffer in their lives.
Then he would go drop him off.
Are you serious?
And keep the women with him.
What? Wait, what?
He would drop off the other guy. Lonnie would drop him off. And then he would keep the women with him. Richard.
Okay.
He would drop Richard off.
Okay.
Yeah. I may have that name wrong. Don't quote me on that part. Because Richard said that he remembered riding with Lonnie and he saw him attack a woman, pull her hair, and they got arrested together. This might have been a different incident, so I'm terrible with names, y'all.
So this could be before or during the case. We are not clear on that timestamp.
I'm just not clear on that name. But I do know that him and Richard got arrested together for assaulting this woman. Pulled her hair. He got triggered, probably by the way she looked like his ex-wife.
Seriously?
And was yelling at her, screaming at her, trying to make her go with them. They both got arrested.
Jesus.
The cops left them in holding.
Oh.
They did not fingerprint them. They did not book them. They let them go scot-free.
Excuse me? Because she was a sex worker / drug user.
No, this one was just a woman on the side of the road. So I don't know if she was a sex worker or anything. She was just a woman. And
she was just there.
He got triggered by her.
How are you that sensitive?
And he lost it for a minute.
Okay.
So they asked...
Woman, his ex-wife, was not abusive to him.
No.
In any way.
The first one was a crackhead that was...
She just had a drug problem.
A major addiction problem.
Yeah, and for some reason, he got triggered by that. It's by a woman sitting on the side of the road. You have no right or like that is not any kind of confirmation because she was on the side of the road.
He was a cunt.
Basically, yeah. You
Yes.
don't have any confirmation to assault someone on the side of the road because he looks like your ex-wife. Because she looks like your ex-wife, that wasn't abusive, that didn't have any kind of beef with you.
Now, this neighborhood was a close-knit neighborhood. Everybody knew everybody. Everybody knew Lonnie. He was the guy that would come and fix your car.
And
You bring your car to his house and he'd fix it up. You may not know where he got the parts, but you didn't question it.
you're like, oh, I can go to work now. That's all you need to know.
Yeah. So
We got the parts.
He stole a lot of them. And
I did not know that either.
they did an interview with 3 of his friends, and his friends were sitting on the porch, just like shooting the shit. And this guy walks up and starts talking to him. And they were convinced that Lonnie was innocent.
Okay.
They said he carried on a quote unquote normal life with his wife and kids.
A lot of serial killers put on that facade.
And they never could see him being this guy that did these atrocious acts. He was a good neighbor. He was a nice guy.
Yeah, he was the picture perfect kind of, oh, I'll help you with so-and-so, or, oh, someone's acting up, I'll come over and check on you or something. It's a very strange scenario, but think of it, I guess.
When the judge asked him if he was ever convicted of a felony, he'd been convicted of 15 felonies.
I have not keeping track of what these felonies are.
He had 4 or 5 for stolen property, 5 for GTA, Grand Theft Auto.
So just stealing cars.
1 for false imprisonment, 2 for battery, and 1 for assault with force.
Which was that?
Wait, he was a great guy. He was a normal guy. That just had 15 felonies for battery, false imprisonment, stealing cars, stolen property.
False imprisonment?
Mm-hmm. Keeping somebody against their will.
Oh!
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Now, I could see a battery or an assault charge happening when you live in that kind of neighborhood. But 4 or 5 stolen properties and 5 Grand Theft Autos?
What was going through your head?
And the assault with force and the false imprisonment, those 2 really caught my attention.
False imprisonment. If you knew about these crimes and you, hadn't got any...
Why wasn't he on the radar?
Hello? Well, to be honest, in that kind of neighborhood...
That's not an excuse.
Nah. For, keeping someone against their will. I understand Grand Theft Auto. That happens in a lot of places, to be honest. I don't understand it as in which I do it. I understand it as in which you don't look into a specific case of that.
Right. Now, Lonnie had a lot of guns.
Oh.
Now, and that's cool. People collect guns. We live in Texas, so...
Yeah,
we don't judge on guns.
We're gun-slinging cow collectors.
That's bullshit. I don't even own a gun. But yeah, so I don't judge on that. But he liked to show his guns off to his friends, just like he did with the pictures. I don't know if I mentioned that yet, but Lonnie had a thing where he thought he was a photo guy. He thought he was a great photographer club guy.
Apparently, because he had a tripod on the back of his van.
He did, and he liked to take lewd pictures of these women, with them bending over, with their legs spread, showing all of their hind parts.
CC pics.
And that's just
interesting. Okay.
Yeah, okay.
You can be a freak without being a serial killer.
Freakily.
All the freaks out there, we love you to death.
Nothing wrong with being a freaky.
We love you to death.
If you have permission.
Don't kill people when you're getting freaky. Please.
Facts.
Shout out to Rose from Golden Girls.
Golden Girls, thank you for being a friend.
Okay, continue.
So, he liked women. He liked porn. Nice. So what? A lot of people like women and like porn. I do. I like women.
Yeah.
I don't like to assault them, though.
As which I hope.
That sounds like a lot of work.
Please don't say that. For reference, do not take our jokes as disrespectful.
So he had 180 photos. He had over 1,000 photos,
which were found later in his home. We'll get to that.
with 180 women. And that's
just wow.
Yeah, it really blows my mind.
Like, wow. That's
So,
interesting. Not in a good way.
There were several serial killers simultaneously active in this area.
I find that really weird.
I do too, that they would be crossing territories like that. But the MO for Lonnie was that if his friend was with him, he would wait till he dropped him off. He shot them square in the chest with a .22. Every time. Left them undressed in an alley or a dumpster or somewhere where they could be easily found.
Yeah, it's basically a mockery. In my eyes, it's a mockery to the cops. And
the women themselves.
Yeah, you just leave their feet out, like, oh, there's someone here, but oh, we don't care. We don't care because they did this specific job. We don't care because they did this specific drug.
So that would be like saying, here's the equivalent. We don't care about all hospital workers who are addicted to caffeine. If you interchange those words, would the circumstances be the same? No.
No, because you'd be like, oh no, a lot of people are addicted to caffeine. A lot of people are addicted to drugs.
Yeah. These women deserve better.
Caffeine is a drug.
And I don't mean just Lonnie. The police completely failed them.
We do not condone any kind of forgetting of any kind of specific person, unless you're a pedophile or a molester. We don't like you. Wait.
Yeah. On November 1st, 2008, a story about the Grim Sleeper appeared on a television program called America's Most Wanted.
Wow. You gotta do some mean stuff to get on that.
They were offering a $500,000 reward to catch him. They had no clue who he was at that point.
Are you serious?
He was just a normal guy that fit in with everybody else in the neighborhood.
As one does.
And he drove a bright orange Pinto.
Pinto bean?
But when people started to recognize that car, he basically ran a chop shop. He just chopped it down and started driving something else.
Wow. How creative.
Yeah. And he had somebody burn it for him.
Wow.
With blood all over it.
You had blood on your car.
And he had somebody burn it. Mm-hmm.
Oh, that gotta have a specific smell.
There was one of his friends that said he used to clean the carpet in the van for Lonnie. But he said it always had this really thick oil on it. He had a hard time getting it up. He had to use a special cleaner.
Oil?
He said maybe it was blood. I don't know.
Okay, yeah, true. Blood could get mixed up in all kind of debris in a car, specifically.
In that van, carpet.
Yeah, you wouldn't know in a carpet.
Mm-mm. It was saturated with blood.
Hold on, y'all. I'm a bit slow.
And this guy cleaned the carpet for him 4 or 5 times with the same substance on it.
Did he know?
He didn't know.
Okay.
He thought it might have been oil.
Okay.
Because he does work on cars.
Blood is pretty thick. I would understand if you could use it for oil, especially if it was in a large amount.
Yeah, I'm not saying that he was wrong. I think I would have been suspicious. Blood has a very specific smell.
Iron, lead, oil smells like car, which doesn't smell like copper.
So you remember when I was saying that they were putting the pictures in front of him?
Yes.
And he was reacting with no emotion whatsoever. He was just like, no, I don't know her.
I remember.
So the police would ask, So how'd your DNA get on her?
What would you say?
I don't know, man. That's weird.
Weird.
Something like that. I don't remember the exact words.
I don't know, man. Maybe I met her.
It was exactly the same for all 10 of them.
Nice.
I mean, you know her? No. Well, how did your DNA get on there, man? Do you know her? Like over and over and over. His DNA was on all 10 of them. Now, they didn't specify in the interview or interrogation whether it was semen or blood or. So I don't know where the DNA was. I think that they purposefully left that ambiguous.
In this specific case, it was most likely semen.
I mean, I would think so too, but I think that they left it ambiguous during the interview so that they would lead him to say something wrong. Don't give me your owl eyes right now.
Okay, so you think they would try to get him to say something to give himself away?
Something only he would know. Yeah. And since the police in the area went so long without telling the community what was going on, like, how weren't all women in this community in danger?
Okay.
All women were in danger.
That is a very good point.
I mean, just because he only ended up killing prostitutes doesn't mean that he couldn't have
killed other women.
He worked at a landfill.
Y'all didn't check where he worked? Because, like, that is literally the dead place I would check first.
Well, he didn't work there when he got arrested, but he worked at a landfill for a while, and that's an ideal place to bury a body.
Hello?
Ain't nobody digging through trash.
Yeah, you're right. Ain't nobody been like, oh, over here in this specific spot. I don't know why I'm doing Donald Trump for this voice, just deal with it. Oh, in this specific spot, we have my prostitute corner. Shut up, Lonnie.
And that gives him access to the trucks, the garbage trucks.
Yeah,
the landfill he drove. Now, this was before everything was automated and updated, obviously, because it was in the 80s. It blows my mind. And
Absolutely.
after he got fired or he stopped working for the landfill, he went to work as a mechanic for the police department.
Which she finds fairly ironic.
I do find that funny. I mean, a serial killer working for the cops? That's hilarious.
Anyway.
So when he first got arrested, he was convicted with the murder of 10 people.
Only 10. Fairly weird.
Well, after he was arrested, there were others that were confirmed as his kill.
Mm-hmm.
But he was already convicted for 10, so they're not going to retry him.
Why?
Because I'm pretty sure that by the time they found the others were definitely linked, he was already dead. Spoiler alert, he's dead. Life is a carnival. Enjoy the ride while it lasts.
Sleep out and have a good day. He's a living piece of shite, by the way.
It was disgusting. He died March 28th at 2020. This is the bad part. He didn't die by execution. He had a heart attack in his cell.
Yeah, the fat.
I wish that he would have been raped and beaten, and he was treated the way he treated these women.
Yeah, I wish he died the way he killed the others. I wish that for every molester in the world.
Right? Just take them out the way they treated people.
Molesters should be hung like witches in the 1600s.
Fair. Valid point.
Mm-hmm.
Well, upon his arrest in 2010, his home was searched, and detectives, like I said, they took nearly 1,000 photos out of his house.
Yeah.
And they were of women and teenage girls, some nude, unconscious, bleeding, and some presumably already dead.
Okay. Barely a lot of people with the thing for blood out there, but
they took those into evidence.
Okay.
After identifying the known victims, the police began to wonder if there were more murders tied to him. At the press conference, they said, we certainly don't believe we are so lucky or so good as to know all of his victims, and that they needed the public's help. Okay, here's the thing. When you live in the ghetto, the last thing you're going to do is call on the cops.
Okay, yeah. Because the cops,
snitches get stitches, bitch.
Especially for, like, a good guy.
Good guy. We don't call the cops. They hurt you.
No, that's not what I mean. That's not what I'm talking about. I'd be more worried about the people around me than the cops. Because cops are barely there. But the people around you, you tell on someone they like, you're dead!
But when you call them in, they tend to go in with this attitude of,
oh, you're so-and-so. You're a specific part.
When they go into this neighborhood with a preconceived notion,
like
in their head, that these people are already
gang members and
drug dealers, drug users.
Yeah.
And these are just normal families trying to live their lives.
Trying to get by.
Trying to make the ends meet. Feed their kids. Like every fucking body else. It's gross.
Yeah.
It's so gross.
Like, oh, you're a part of this specific group of people. You have a stereotype. You are like this and like this. No.
Well, he did serve his time in San Quentin. State prison.
For how long?
You're going to ask me the hard questions.
For how long?
10 years.
10.
That's it. He killed longer than that.
Years.
Yeah. Because he was arrested in 2010 and he died in 2020. So I don't know if he was in San Quentin that whole time, but he was locked up. And there were nearly 750 inmates on death row, where no one had been put to death since 2006. Why are they on death row if they're not going to put them to death?
Put them to death the moment they get on death row.
Well, that's not actually true, because when you go back to a case like the West Memphis 3...
Oh, yeah.
Those guys were sentenced to death as teenagers, and they didn't do anything.
Yeah. Do not put people on death row that you know didn't do it. There's a specific vibe you have around people that you know did it.
Well, we'll cover that case at some point.
But not this case.
My favorite podcast not just covered it. They covered it a while back, but I just re-listened to it, and it took them 4 episodes. And shout out to Morbid. They're amazing at what they do.
Ash so much.
Elena! We love them. I love Morbid. They're a great show. But it's safe to assume that Franklin would live out his life in jail and not go on to kill again, right? Thankfully for that neighborhood. So he was sentenced to death. He was sentenced to death for the string of murders.
String, more like an entire yarn ball.
We got a yarn ball?
A yarn ball.
What are you, a cat?
Meow.
So Franklin was 63 when he was convicted of killing 9 women and a teenage girl. They didn't actually convict him of killing that guy. That was later. They didn't know about it.
Wait, why not? Why not?
It just wasn't discovered. There wasn't all the women, he had photos and evidence, and he was a trophy keeper.
Yeah, which is, in my opinion, quite literally the worst type of serial killer.
He kept little trophies from them, and that's going to get you caught. But the detectives believe that he may have killed at least 25 women.
We all know it's more.
I suspect that it's more, with 160 or 180 photos of different women.
And it goes up to 1,000 later when they search his house.
Well, that was how many pictures, but there was 160 different women, 180 different women in the pictures.
Not including his wife, by the way.
Yeah, she wasn't in this. She didn't know anything. She didn't know anything about it.
Okay.
But she lived in a separate house.
Yeah, I'm not good at
She had her own place. And I think maybe that's because she suspected something was going on. She was a church woman. She was involved in the community, and
she wouldn't leave her kids. She wouldn't leave her kids if she suspected something was going on.
I would worry about the son.
Why?
Because if all of this was going on in the house, because a lot of the pictures, it was said by one of his friends that a lot of the pictures that were taken were not in the van. They were in his house.
Yeah, but okay, if we're going back, I'm going back to the wife, but if she knew something was going on, as a regular mother, you wouldn't leave your kids in that house.
That's true.
You wouldn't leave your kids in that house.
She may not have had a clue.
Yeah.
There's several serial killers that are completely different with their family and their people than they are when they're doing the act.
Yeah.
Well, one of the victim's family came forth during the trial, and she said the defendant took my daughter, murdered her, put her in a plastic bag, a trash can like she was trash. This was Laverne Peters, who was her 25-year-old daughter was found in a garbage bin in 2007. Told the court that before Franklin was sentenced. My hope is that he spends the rest of his glory days in a jail cell and which will become his trash bag.
Yeah.
That was Mrs. Peters and her 25-year-old daughter.
Go Mrs. Peters. Go Mrs. Peters for that.
One of the mothers of the women, said that that's a pain that you never truly get over.
Yeah.
It sticks with you. The pain of losing your child doesn't ever really go away. 5 of the jurors who convicted Franklin attended, officially nodding when she said that. Before the hearing, one of the victim's sisters thanked the juror, and he winked at her, which is cute.
That's
adorable. During the hearing, a woman spoke of losing her best friend.
Oh my God.
But said she still hears her voice in her dreams.
Oh.
A victim's uncle said he remembers how loudly she used to cry when he babysat her as a child. That's precious. A reminder, he said, of how she did everything in her life passionately.
That is so...
At one point, the nephew of Henrietta Wright, whose body was found under a mattress in an alleyway in 1986, addressed Franklin directly, saying, "You're a cold-hearted dude." And Franklin just nodded slightly. Just gave a nod.
You disgusting, vile piece of shit.
Yeah. When
I would have leaped across that courtroom.
I'm telling you how bad I would have wanted to leap.
I would have leaped.
When Moore, the surviving victim, addressed the survivor.
The survivor.
When she addressed Franklin, her body began to shake. And all she could say was, "Why? Why? Why? Really? Why?"
Which is...
Moore wasn't listed in the criminal complaint against Franklin, but Los Angeles Police Detective Darren Dupree, the last remaining detective, by the way, who worked on the task force that investigated the whole Grim Sleeper killings, he said he was very confident that she was one of his victims.
Why?
I don't know. But Franklin just sat stoically as Kennedy, the judge, sentenced him, just as he had throughout the trial. But earlier in the morning, he did react to the statements delivered by some of the victims' relatives.
And what were these reactions?
he would just slightly move. He wouldn't really show any real emotion. Mary Alexander, whose 18-year-old daughter was murdered, spoke directly to him, looked right at him, and said, quote, "I'd like for Mr. Franklin to turn around and face me."
Face me in a match. I want to meet you in the ring. Excuse me.
Franklin turned his head slowly, locking eyes with her. "I'd like to know why," she said, gripping like the wood is right there.
That would be crushed under my grip.
And he whispered something in response.
They didn't pick up on it?
And no. And then she said it a little louder, like, "Why?" And again he whispered. Dupree told reporters that after the hearing he saw Franklin mutter, "I didn't do it."
You are disgusting.
And then Alexander said, "I know she didn't do anything to hurt you. I know that."
Go, Mrs. Alexander!
Franklin's face softened and he nodded. Alexander told Franklin that she had thought a lot about forgiveness, but said she was finding the concept extremely difficult. "I'm still battling that."
Okay, look, you killed my child. You take my child away from me. You rip my flesh and blood. I popped out of my punani. I popped out of my punani and raised that little embryo. I'm not gonna forgive you if you kill it.
It.
I'm not gonna forgive you if you kill my kid. I don't care. I'm gonna find the. I'm not making fun of you, girl. I love you so much, Mrs. Alexander. I'm gonna find it in my heart to forgive this killer. No, I'm not.
No, I'm not. Another victim's sister told Franklin that she recognized him. And he got angry. He was triggered. He said, "That's a bald-faced lie." Yeah.
That is amazing.
These family members got together and just started ganging up on him, it sounds like.
That is amazing.
In imposing the sentence, Kennedy said that she struggled throughout the case to understand what his motive was. "But it doesn't matter why," she said. "There could never be a justification for what you have done." And that's true. There is no justification. There are other famous serial killers, and their entire motive and why they did this, they'll tell their story, you know? They'll tell how they were raised. They'll tell why they did it.
But him?
Like the Hillside Strangler, the Night Stalker.
The Anthill Kids.
Oh, yeah. We might have to go back to the Anthill Kids. That one's brutal.
We might.
He never said a fucking word. Not from the first to the day he died. He never admitted. He never said why. He never gave these families
reassurance, anything. Closure. He didn't give them a goddamn thing.
Nothing.
And you know what?
That's really shitty.
If there's hell, you are right beside the devil getting a pineapple shoved up your ass.
Just like a little Nicky.
Just like a little Nicky.
Yes. I hope so. Mini pineapples 14 times a day.
Mm-hmm.
More.
The amount of women you killed, that's how many pineapples.
Oh.
Yeah.
180 women. 180. Did I just mess that up? No. Okay.
180 pineapples in your butt.
That's what I meant. You got me all excited. Okay. So these deaths that went on.
Yes.
In the mid to late 80s coincided with a surge of slangs linked to the crack cocaine epidemic.
Slangs?
Yeah, the murders linked up at the same time that the crack epidemic went in.
So like a paper chain.
Yeah, but you can't really say, "Oh, I think she might have overdosed." She got a fucking bullet wound in her chest.
She got a bullet wound in her chest, and there is evidence that she got molested.
His MO never changed.
It was just the same. Molestation, bullet in chest. Molestation, bullet in chest, alley.
Yeah, it was an alley trash can. I think that the main reason that they didn't find anything till later is because he used that job he had until he didn't have it anymore.
Mm-hmm.
That's just my own personal opinion. But
I really I respect all the people that went through these horrible tragedies and went through this man's disgusting actions. And I just want to say, slay to all the moms that yelled in that man's face.
yes, right? Because that was amazing.
That was amazing. We love you.
Can you imagine having
No.
the bravery? I didn't even say what they had yet.
Yeah.
Can you imagine having the bravery to stand up and look at him in the face
I would cry.
and say that? That just took so muchness.
Muchness.
Yes.
This is now the Dr. Seuss show.
No, that's from Alice in Wonderland.
Oh, I'm wrong. Oh,
That was the Mad Hatter.
muchness. Okay.
Muchness.
In perspective, I'd leap. I already said this, but I'm gonna say it again. Leap like a frog, like I'd leap. Never mind.
There was a point when one of the concerned citizens went to the police
Yes.
and was trying to report that she thought something was going on. The police looked at her and said, "Why are you worried? He's only killing hookers."
Disgusting piece of shit.
All right, guys, it's the segment in the show where we have a palate cleanser. So this segment is called Simon Says, where Simon gives you a fun history or science fact. Here we go. Simon Says.
Royal history fact about, I'm pretty sure her name was Queen Elizabeth. Queen Elizabeth. She had a very weird obsession with how long her fingers were. Like, they were weirdly long. It was said her middle finger was over 6 inches long.
What?
Yeah. And her teeth were so rotten that it was hard to understand her.
I bet her breath stank.
It was her teeth were blackened to the point where she died.
I just gagged like for real.
Stop! To the point where she died. They investigated her body. Investigated her body, and her teeth were down her throat. They fell out while she was dying.
That is so gross.
She had a weird obsession with sugar.
It's supposed to be a palate cleanser.
Well, her palate was definitely not cleansed.
All right, back to the case. Deborah Jackson was a 29-year-old waitress. She was discovered shot in the chest 3 decades ago in an alley.
30 years.
The body of Janisha Peters, who was 25, was found in a dumpster in 2007.
Mm-hmm.
She was a waitress during the day or before her regular job.
So the police didn't care about her because she was a waitress?
No. That's just it. She was a waitress, and she was discovered shot in the chest
Right in
with
the
that 22. So you remember when I said that he was violent with that one woman and they got arrested and they didn't book him.
Yes.
They didn't book either man.
Mm-hmm.
That was an opportunity they had to gather Lonnie's DNA.
You're right.
They could have.
You're right.
But even back then, they didn't have the DNA technology, but they could have gathered the evidence.
Mm-hmm.
Because as time went on, the DNA science advanced and the database grew. It wasn't entered in November 2004 or August 2005 probation because all those felonies that he got, he was on probation for them.
As one normally does.
Well, when somebody commits a felony, they're supposed to gather their DNA.
They didn't?
Never. And he had 15 felonies.
15 samples. 15.
And I don't know when that went into effect, but I do know that his DNA was never gathered. So that was a slip up.
Cops that didn't gather his DNA, I hope you suffer some kind of head injury.
That's kind of rude.
I
We
don't
want
care.
that.
I hope no, the ones that specifically ruled out hookers, ruled out these women, I hope you suffer a dick injury that you never get to have kids.
Uh-oh. A dick injury is harsh, bro.
Dick injuries.
Yup. So for tonight, it's really late. We are going to cut this part 1 off. And so we are going to end our episode today. And there is one more piece of business
that we gotta handle.
So what we're going to do from now on is we have a fun little box with the top 50 countries by population. And our Simon over here is going to pick out a country each week that we will be doing the case from the next week.
It's the pink box. It's the pink box.
So, here, pick one out, Simon.
Pink box.
And the next case, whether it be
My hand's
murder,
too big.
robbery, white collar, will come from whatever country that Simon picks out. Because just sticking to America would be boring.
Boring.
What you got, Simon?
What is that country?
Let me see.
21 United.
Oh, you picked United Kingdom.
Oh.
The UK.
British people.
We're going Britain next week. So I appreciate you joining our chaos today. We will get better, I'm sure. But I hope this was bearable. And we loved y'all having y'all around. Bye-bye.